Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully you can all hear me. Just looking around. Perfect. Just before I begin and introduce myself, I've been asked to let everyone know in the room that someone has misplaced a phone that has a fish screensaver on it. So if that sounds like you, do get in touch, because that has been picked up by security. So if you are missing a phone, it has been taken. So if you want to grab that. Right. Just to introduce myself briefly, my name is Fred Sugden. I'm the Associate Director for Defence and National Security at Tech UK. And a big warm welcome to all of you for this next session. Very interesting panel discussion so far. This session is all around defence tech, and specifically on areas for collaboration between the UK and Ukraine. And we have a very impressive panel lineup. We're going to be going through a few questions shortly in a minute. But what I thought I might do before we get into that is ask everybody on the panel and online to introduce themselves in a couple of minutes. Just to note, this session is on the record for those of you on the panel and online. So if you just bear that in mind when we're speaking. But perhaps if we start online with you, Natalia, just to briefly introduce yourself to everybody here in a couple of minutes, that would be great.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm very happy to be with you. Unfortunately, I didn't get to be with you offline in person, and I know that a lot of friends of Brave One actually are there today, but I'm there with you with all my heart. I'm the project lead, or sometimes I call myself engine of Brave One, Ukrainian defense tech cluster that was founded by 6 ministries: Ministry of Digital Transformation, Ministry of Defense, General Staff, Ministry of Strategical Industries, Ministry of Economy, and Council for National Security and Defense. So being a defense tech, Ukrainian defense tech cluster, our main goal is to support all defense tech made in Ukraine to appear them on the front line. And I wanted actually to thank everybody for all your support to Ukraine, and because we feel it, we know it, and we really do appreciate it very much. Thank you, and I'm again glad to be here with you today.
Thank you, Natalia. Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you might have noticed that we were due to be joined by the Deputy Defence Minister. Unfortunately, she's not able to join us this afternoon. So we'll come to our guests in the room. And if I could start with you, Alex, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Alex Tepur, I'm founder and CTO of the company Skype, and we have in background production light sport aircraft since 2006. So when this was started in 2014, we converted our business into unmanned systems. So that's quite a unique system to collect information from really deep inside from the territory under control of Russians. So now we work tightly with our defense and collect information, help them to we work with different forces, with rocket forces, with air defense forces, etc. So that's where we are now.
Thank you. Ned.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Ned Baker. So I'm Director of Programs and Head of our Ukraine operations at Helsing. Helsing, for those who don't know, is Europe's largest defense AI company. We build AI products specifically for the defense market. And the company was born out of the belief that defense, like a lot of other sectors, will be transformed by AI. And it's our mission now to use AI to protect our democracies and our values. We have been operating, have a presence in Ukraine since the start of the large invasion last year in February. And we're very proud of that. We see the support that we've provided to Ukraine as a very tangible embodiment of that mission.
Thank you, Ned. Hugo.
Thanks, Fred. Hugo James, one of the managing partners of the National Security Strategic Investment Fund. This is the government's corporate venturing arm for national security and defence, with a mission to accelerate the adoption of advanced technologies into national security and defence use.
Thank you, Hugo. And John.
Hi there. So John Ridge, I'm the Innovation Director in the Ministry of Defence. There are two organisations that come under me: Defence Innovation Unit, which is around strategy, policy and managing our £100 million a year innovation portfolio, and DASA, the Defence and Security Accelerator, which finds and funds great ideas in industry and joins them up with the users in defence and national security. My interest in Ukraine, so we've played a relatively minor role in terms of enabling UK defence support to Ukraine, particularly around providing finance at relatively short notice. The nice thing about being innovation, you tend to be able to get money quite quickly. So we've done some work there. But more importantly, what I want to do is to learn from your incredibly hard-won lessons. I think you are the exemplars, you are the benchmark now for adaptation at speed in conflict. And I want to learn those lessons and take them on board for the UK.
Thank you, John. So we heard a little earlier around how the impact of drones has sort of fundamentally changed the nature of warfare in Ukraine since the invasion last February. So perhaps, Natalia, if I come to you first, how do you feel sort of drones have changed the sort of balance of war in Ukraine, and what are some of the lessons that Ukraine's learned over the last 18 months or so in that regard?
So it's evidently that we know that technology, they become totally game changer of the, I would say, classical doctrine of war and making wars. Because after full-scale invasion, we see, first of all, a lot of Ukrainian newly made defense tech solutions that appeared on the front line and showed to be really very effective and actually demonstrating the effectiveness on in all of 5 domains we haven't worked today. So now we see first of all maybe UAVs, which may be more spread and more evident to be useful and to be used on the front lines. But as well now we see unmanned ground vehicles, marine drones. We see other solutions within communications, within geolocation, within navigation. So everything that we have showed us to be really very, very effective. If to talk actually a few things about Brave One, because it's 6 months after the official launch of this cluster in Ukraine. We knew that a lot of solutions have been operating already on the front line, and we wanted to showcase all of them to the armed forces. So they know about that and they can use it, and we can be useful for these companies to scale them, to give them grants for their newly R&D products. So make, I would say, a strong boost for the development of such defense tech solutions. So, understanding that we now are one entry point for all the Ukrainian defense tech companies, and we're working not dependent on their stage of readiness, of their level of readiness and their vertical of the defense tech. We work with the ideas and we work with the big manufacturers. As well, being entry point for international cooperation with the international companies within technologies and components and testing possibilities for them, as well being entry point for investment attractions and joint ventures and common R&D. So we understand that today Ukraine is the best, I would say, place to test your solutions and your product. We understand that we have very fast feedback, and we understand that there is for us, all of us, there is the maybe the biggest possibility to do really some innovative solutions in the field of defense tech. Being Brave One, we are focusing to be, and we understand that today Ukraine is one of the most dynamic hubs in defense innovations. We are applying NATO standards to the Ukrainian companies, and we understand that Ukrainian companies today are already one of the important parts in the global defense tech markets. And we are focusing on our 4S. We say it's scale, it's synergy, it's speed, and it's simplicity.
Thank you, Natalia. So Alex, obviously as the founder and CEO of a company that specializes in drones and UAVs, I'm interested to hear from your perspective how the last 18 months has changed things and what you think perhaps the future of drones in the defense sector is.
Actually, it changed dramatically. And but first of all, I'd like to say that how it happened. it is not happen randomly. It's activities of completely exact persons, people like Minister of Digital Transformation in Ukraine, Michael Fedorev, and his team. They actually triggered this momentum in this industry. It's really difficult to even to imagine how we would be, how the situation would be in Ukraine without those impaction, those number of drones they involved into this war. Just for understanding, I give you a case, like hypothetically, if somebody ask somebody from frontline, from any kind of forces, and offer the only one unit, like FPV drone with 400 grams warhead, or to get just one shell, 155 with 40 something kilogram. What do you think? What these guys would choose? Definitely the only drone. If that would be 10 drones, micro drones, or 10 shells, that's going to be the same story. 100, 1,000. Because last summer, sometimes Russians made more than 50,000 shots by shells, by 152 shells. Did it help them? No. If they would double that number of shots, if there would be million shots, that would not bring any benefit to them. That's completely different story with drones impaction we have today in this war. It's accuracy. If we talk about shells, it is in the best case, this is around like 10-15 meters from the target. In drone case, it's just meter or even better, because some really skilled guys are able to put it right to the window. So even from like economy efficiency, that's completely different story today. And this is different, completely different accuracy, distance. So they on the front line, the solid distance like 8-12 kilometers from each other, because it's exactly distance where the FPV drones can fight each other. So what is going on now? And definitely we passed through the point no return. So that's in a close future, the dominance of the drone gonna be completely, it's gonna be like major impaction from drones industry on the war, much more than any other approaches and tools we have. So we should extract people from vehicles, definitely. No chance to provide. For example, I'm a pilot, so I understand well how it works when you are sitting inside of the flying vehicle. It's not chance to think. It is not time to think, actually. So just reflexes. It is just reflexes. If it's just reflexes, any machine, any computer can perform the action much more faster without any mistakes than persons. So that's why we should extract people from vehicles, from flying vehicles, from scrolling vehicles, etc., and allow these robots flying, scrolling, etc., to make their work. So this is actually what is going on.
Thank you, Alex. And I think that probably leads nicely on to my next question, actually. And it wouldn't be a tech event without talking about AI. And obviously, AI is fundamental to autonomy. They're sort of intrinsically linked. So, Ned, I wonder if you could talk us through, how, in your view, AI is playing a key role in the conflict, and specifically, what Helsing has perhaps been doing to assist Ukraine in that regard.
Sure. Before I come on to that, I might just reflect on a couple of things that Talia said that I think are really important, because, as I said at the beginning, we've been on the ground with Ukraine, interacting with armed forces of Ukraine, with the MOD, with the General Staff for quite a long time. And I think there's two lessons that I could draw out of that interaction that I think are really important to this discussion. The first one, I think, is adaptability. And I think what the Ukrainians have shown is an ability to not only adapt to changing situations, new circumstances, different tactics on the Russian side, but also adapt to new technologies, both Soviet era Soviet era technologies, new gifted technologies, domestically produced technologies, and bring all of those things together and bring them together in a really creative and impactful way. The second point I think is really interesting is speed of adoption. And this is something that I think we really suffer from in Europe. What the Ukrainians have managed to do is bring things from problem statement to kind of solution thesis to minimum viable product, and then all the way to scale deployment in a way that we could only dream for in the rest of Europe. They do it in weeks and months, and Brave One's been a massive part of that. And I think that leads me on to the third point. I mean, I would say, I wouldn't probably say, I know it's probably slightly strange for me to say that coming from Helsing, a defense AI company, that this is a war characterized by AI yet. I think this is a conflict characterized by technology and all sorts of technologies, UAVs, certainly, satellite imagery, developments of electronic warfare, application of software, and yes, AI. But I think what we've seen is the grassroots of the impact that AI is starting to make, and it's been really significant. But I think the potential for AI in future conflicts is so great and so transformative that this hasn't yet come to pass in Ukraine just yet. I think this is a war characterized by technology. I think that we have seen the beginnings of conflict of AI, using AI, but I think it'll probably be the next conflict that will be won by AI.
Thank you, Ned. So if I come to John and to Hugo, how, in your view, do you see the role of technology within the war? And how has this changed perhaps from conflicts in the past? And what sort of the lessons you've drawn from what you've seen over the last 18 months?
I'll start and then pass over. So, and I'll pick up on what the previous speakers said, because there's everything they've said is 100% true. I think what's been interesting about the campaign is when you look at the beginning, it was, and someone described it as me, whatever lesson you wanted to draw, you could draw from Ukraine. So to start with, the lesson was it's about light anti-tank ambushes, and that's going to be the way to win. And then it was, well, it's all about the drones, and it's all about this, it's all about EW, it's all about artillery. The reality is it's been a mix of all of that stuff. And I think what's interesting, whilst I absolutely agree, I think technology is very important, there's also been some really old-fashioned, horrible, nasty trench fighting, sort of human on human fighting. So it has not replaced, it's kind of added to that, which makes it really complex to try and draw out the sort of key lessons from it. The one that I would say, because I think most of what I would have said has been covered already. The one thing I would say is I think what's characterized how it's worked is the relationship between defense and industry, and to a certain extent, academia and else. So bringing all of these things together is what feels differently, and particularly the pace at which it's happening. So we've seen kind of technology races before. I was a counter-ID guy in Afghanistan, and I saw the kind of the battle between IEDs laid, new detection capabilities and everything else. And that got very, very quick. This feels even quicker than that. And seeing how quickly fielding new capabilities, trialing them, finding out what works, finding out what's being countered. So it's kind of become a war of MVPs, which is something which I don't think I've seen in quite that level before. So I'll stop there and pass to Hugo.
Thanks, John. Hopefully I won't duplicate many of the other points that have been made, but there are a few conclusions that we've been drawing in INSIF that I think are pertinent to raise it. So it is a truism to say that war spurs innovation. I think that point's been made on this panel already, and you've seen some of the technologies that have really been exploited by both sides in that conflict in a way that hasn't been done before. But I think from a commercial market perspective, you have seen a real change in approach to dual use or so-called dual use technologies that previously had seen significant barriers to entry, and you've seen rethinking in terms of ESG, rethinking in terms of exclusion lists, and how LPs and GPs identify and define where they are willing to draw the line. But that has also brought about new hardware as well as new software, which, when combined with some clever tactics, clearly has enabled, certainly in the case of Ukraine, to hold the innovation high ground. And that's been the standout feature from our perspective. So I think the lessons for us are pretty clear. So to prevail, you have to win the startup war, the sort of MVP concept that John's just mentioned. You have to be able to constantly iterate new systems, new software, deploy them for tactical advantage, and then iterate on those again as countermeasures are developed to try and mitigate those. There's a big thing here also about the supply chain and the centrality of that. So I think taking a sort of drone example, I think I'm not wrong in saying that drone loses up to 10,000 drones a month. Now that is a pretty hard figure to try and sustain over the long period of time, over a long period of time. And so the lessons for us are you have to expand the supplier base. But how do you do that in a technology sector where DJI in China owns 90% of the market for commercial drones? So we're having to think about other solutions to draw in key componentry into our supply base. The other aspect to consider here is one of cost. And this is really coming home to roost, I think, in the cost imposition warfare that we are seeing. So a $400 drone destroying a multi-million-pound tank or a vessel. So that is going to force us to think about how we deploy capability in the field, and also what traditional military concepts we have built a lot of our doctrine on that need to be reviewed. The other thing I would comment on from an opportunities perspective, if you were a commercial drone manufacturer or working in technologies that are relevant to this domain, is there is a big void in one particular area, and maybe Alex is better at commenting on this than I am, but in counter UAS, there is a pretty underwhelming civil capability set in this regard. There's also a huge lack of policy here really stimulating the industry. But I think from a battlefield context, this is a really hard problem to grapple with. And the suite of tools that you have to try and combat very devastating and swarming UAS technologies are probably not sufficient in a future conflict. And I think maybe coming back to Alex, we've got to know his company a bit over the past year or so, and he would be a good example of their company from a category perspective. I think the global position in the area that they are focusing on, and that is extraordinary for us to try and rebalance where we thought the market was versus what the realities are in Ukraine.
Thank you, Hugo. Before I move on, Alex, did you want to pick up that point around counter UAS? Anything you want to add on?
No, I think still not. So it is just like a future, maybe.
Okay. Natalia, if I could come back to you. You talked a bit about Brave One in your introduction, but I was just interested if you could expand perhaps a bit on how Brave One collaborates with partners in the UK and other allied countries, and what that looks like in practice.
Thank you for the question. I just wanted to share more details about Brave One, because after 6 months, we have on our platform more than 600 solutions registered, and we have half of them, 300, with the Brave One status. That means that they've passed through military expertise, and they are valued as being interesting for the usage of the armed forces. So we have in our portfolio now 300 solutions we're working with each day with these companies. And more details, we started to be focused on a few directions. We started with the UGVs, unmanned ground vehicles. We started to find solutions and develop solutions on electronic warfare, on demining, and on AI. And just giving you an example, after we started actually Brevan, we took firstly we started to work with the unmanned ground vehicles, and today we have more than 70 solutions on unmanned ground vehicles, and we know that it's possible. We see, and 25 of them, by the way, were tested already, and we see that they might be really effectively used as a logistic, as a demining, as a combat, as a kamikaze platform, as a evacuation platform. So they have a really very big variety. The same thing with the electronic warfare solutions, because when we started to do that, it was, I would say, honestly, hard to find up to 10 solutions in that sphere. And now we're working with more than 40 different solutions within their electronic warfare ideas and solutions. And it means that we really have big possibilities and big requests, while understanding what are the needs from the front line. We have very fast and big feedback from the industries that were talked by our colleagues, that matchmaking between industries, between businesses and armed forces, they give really very big and very effective results. If to go on to international cooperation, we understand and we totally know that a lot of technologies, they are already existing in the world, and we are totally support the common R&D labs and common technologies and solutions that can appear in cooperation within international and Ukrainian companies. We have had already a few delegations from different European countries and from American countries coming to Ukraine, and we understand how it's impossible just to make that matchmaking. Even we see really results when we do, for example, when we do like niche closed event for the UGVs in Ukraine, and companies making the same, I would say, resolving the same problem. And when they start to talk to each other, they found really totally new products and totally new solutions. And that is coming up as well with the collaboration with the international companies and Ukrainian companies. We are like being Brevan, we are totally focused. I call it like business stage. That means that we're working within innovative Ukrainian business companies, and sometimes these are startups, sometimes they're big companies, Alex, for example, has as well. But we understand that, for example, people like Alex, they know what technologies or what companies they are looking for, what technologies they need to improve their products. And that is maybe the most fast and effective track when we make that matchmaking between international and Ukrainian companies, so they have totally new and totally effective solution. And we've talked today about different as well defense tech and solutions and innovation, but we see in Ukraine as well that the price is very important for us. And yes, we totally know that there are already some really brilliant, innovative and technological brilliant solutions, but as well we are paying a lot of attention today on the price of these solutions, and we understand that really sometimes very creative solutions come up to the minds of engineering, and after some R&D and some studies, really some totally new technologies are coming into the heads. For example, one of them that is already known and that is used in Ukraine, for example, sound detection, that we are used instead of like classical radars. We know that, for example, the problem with Shaheds, that they are flying too low and not all the radars can detect them, and that sound detectors. They show themselves to be really effective within their detection possibilities and as well with the price of their working capacities. So we totally open for the cooperation with associations, with clusters, with the B2B level. We call it B2B level because really we understand that having that deep understanding of the needs and feedback from the frontline in Ukraine and having the technologies and components that are very powerful in the world, it's really the best way to go on for the cooperation, being partners for the future and now.
Got it. John, if I could come to you. Yes.
I was just going to respond to that because I think it's worth pointing out just how disruptive this sort of acquisition model is. So traditionally for the UK, the approach would be we would get a frontline user to say, it's really hard to do X. I need a capability sponsor to go away and design me a thing which is going to do that. We do that all in-house. We then go out to industry and say, build me a thing that's this big, weighs that much, works in these temperatures, does these things, and specify it to death. So that would then allow us to be really confident we had got a contract which nobody could wriggle out of. The contrast between that and this is extraordinary. Because what you're actually doing is you're saying to industry, we've got these problems, come and help us. And I talk to UK industry who are getting hour by hour feedback on their products from theatre and amending them and firing them back with almost no intervention at all from anyone inside government in the UK or Ukraine. That is a completely disruptive model. And I think it's easy to kind of gloss over that. That's what we need to get out from the UK perspective. That's where I want us to be in ideally a couple of years' time, because it is absolutely the way to do it, because the imagination and creativity we've got in industry and people sat in the audience here, that's what we need to unlock, because we're not going to know the answers.
And that was actually my question.
Right.
So, just to build on that a little bit, if I may. So what, from your experience, have been some of the key blockers to making that change in the UK?
So I always remind myself and others that nobody inside defence procurement comes into work thinking, I'm going to make life really difficult for everyone. They come into work thinking, I'm going to do a good job for D&S or wherever else, whichever part of the system you're in. The problem is that the individual incentives which are set up in the system are generally around minimising risks. And they're generally around a stovepipe risk of minimize the commercial risk or minimize financial risk or whatever. And what we tend to trade in order to minimize those risks is time. And that's how, because someone's not quite sure, so I'll ask my boss and my boss's boss. And so you end up with this lag in the system. So these are all good people trying to do a good job. The incentives are not set up right for it. There's also something fundamental, and this is the Defence Command Paper refresh is really clear on this. We need a different relationship with industry. It needs to feel like a partnership rather than a transactional model where we say what we want and industry is paid to deliver it. It needs to be industry in at the beginning of the process, helping us decide what's required, helping us solve those problems. And until we kind of get over that barrier, again, we're never going to have a really productive relationship between the two parties.
Thank you, John. Ned, I just wanted to come to you because obviously Helsing, relatively new company, new to the UK and elsewhere. What, in your view, are some of the challenges for a new player in the market versus some of the more established companies that have been operating in the sector for a while? And how has that played out?
I mean, it's effectively as John describes there. I mean, there's an old adage that nobody ever gets fired for selling to a prime, and that rings true constantly. It's all about incentives, as John quite rightly laid out. This is about giving people within our defence establishment confidence that a new company trying new things in new ways can be trusted to deliver. I think the Ukraine, as Natalia has pointed out, has been a real boon to companies like Helsing in a way, because they've been able to partner with Ukrainian companies, with the Ukrainian government, and demonstrate capabilities that deliver real impact on the front lines, bring that evidence back to Western nations and say, look, it works. It's different, I know, it doesn't look like something you're used to, but it works. So I think that has been of benefit.
Thank you.
Can I just pick up very quickly on that? Because, and this is the conversation I had with the primes as well, that is going to require them to change. So they absolutely have a role. So it's not, this isn't, I wouldn't want anyone to go away and think the answer is it's all about SMEs and non-traditional primes. The answer is everyone's got a really important role to play. I just think that some of the traditional defence primes, their role is going to be slightly different in the future. And we talked about capacity, manufacturing capacity. They've got tons of manufacturing capacity. Maybe they're churning out someone else's design rather than their own in terms of drones and stuff.
Thanks, Paul. So we've got about 10 minutes, guys. So I think we'll maybe open up the floor to questions in the room. If you could just let me know who you are and where you're from and who your question is directed to, that would be great.
Hi, Tony Reeves from Deloitte. What's impressed me on this panel and the previous panel is that from the Ukrainian team, everyone, from ministers to the project leads, are all talking on the same page about strategy, tactics, purpose, unity. How useful is that when you're getting stuff done in Ukraine? How envious are the UK team of that same unity?
I think we know who that's. John or Hugo?
I don't envy Ukraine at all, if I'm honest. I really hope we never end up in the same position. I don't envy them, but I admire their ability to do exactly what you've described, which is to get everyone on the same sheet. That's what an existential challenge does to you. That puts everyone, it gives a sense of urgency to the system. So I don't envy the fact that they've had to do that, but I'm envious of their ability to have achieved it.
I might just pick up one other point from a UK perspective in that I think more so than potentially any other time in recent history, certainly the UK government's been very clear about what its technology priorities are from a strategic perspective. So hence why you've got the quantum computing fund, 2.5 billion over the next decade. You've got 1 billion or 1.4 billion going into low Earth observation space technologies. You've got over 1 billion going into semiconductors. And most of those strategies have been worked with industry and small and medium enterprises informing and influencing how that strategy looks and where that funding is going to go. So I think there's a much closer alignment now between companies and government than probably at any other time, sort of post-war. But also there's a much bigger opportunity for companies to influence government policy, which I think can only be a positive.
Thank you.
Can I just, sorry, just to build on something that John said, I mean, completely spot on. That would be my first reaction. I'm not envious of a situation born out of, horrific necessity, which is what the Ukrainians find themselves in at the moment. I would say, though, I think that I would rather begin that cooperation now today to prepare. I would rather be prepared for a conflict in the future against our adversaries than wait for a war until we find that sense of unity.
100%. Thank you. Any other questions in the room?
If it's possible, I just will add some things from my side.
Yes, please.
Yes, you're absolutely right, because all of us have to think as well strategically. And if we are talking about innovations as well, we have to collaborate on the space innovations and hypersonic and quantum system, etc., etc. But all the Ukrainians, they understand totally that tomorrow cannot come to our homes any day. And we have totally be focused on the fast solutions we can deliver to the front line today, not tomorrow, today. And really, if to talk strategically and think strategically, yes, we have to find some maybe new game changers. But again, having wartime today and having this situation different each, I would say, months, maximum 1 month, it's totally different. And we have to be very, very fast with very fast, dynamic and new solutions we can deliver and we can do and actually to give to our people on the front line.
Thank you, Natalia. Any other questions in the room? I'm not sure who is next. Okay.
Hello. Hello. Yeah, my name is Adrian Connolly. I work with a Ukrainian company called Logic 7. We've just moved our office from Kiev to London, and we are a tech company providing cybersecurity, but we are very much focused around defense. Okay, so what we do is we build defense simulators for the Ukrainian army. And I believe that the lady, I always forget, Katrina, maybe know Logic 7. and PSS. I'm not sure. But what we're doing now here is we're trying to bring it over here and showing the MOD what our defense simulators are all about. Okay. We've been training, we've done about 45,000, trained about 45,000 Ukrainian soldiers. And we're now introducing it into Poland. We are NATO accredited as well. So we have that accreditation around it. What do we do? Where do we start to kind of introduce our simulations to the MOD? We're actually going across to the US as well, to the Marine Corps as well.
John, do you want to?
As we're a new startup, we just want to find an avenue.
Really easy answer is DASA. The answer is DASA. So I can, if you come up, I'll give you some details of someone to contact, or I can take yours and link you in. That will allow you to effectively get onto DASA's database of all the companies, explain what you do. That allows us to search when someone's looking for a simulation capability. They can search against that and find you. And they can also, if necessary, provide you sort of mentoring of who to engage, where the customer base is at. So that it's DASA is the answer. If anyone else is in a company who wants to know how to get into UK defence, the answer is DASA. And we can, in fact, if at the end of this, is there a possibility of firing out to the attendees an address list?
Yeah, I think Dan, who's currently organised today, can share an email address with him on the follow-up.
Okay, thank you very much indeed.
Was there a question?
Roman Zonko from Impressed. My question is to John. As a director of defense innovation, what is the number one insight that you learned in the innovation that Ukraine has shown in this war? And maybe the UK has already adapted to the extent that you can share, of course.
So the most important is it's the speed of adaptation is what wins. So it's not about the specific technology. It's not about whether it's anti-armor or drones or whatever. It's your speed of adaptation and your ability to get a good concept demonstrator fielded, learn the lessons, and be able to spin that round faster than your adversary. Because if you can do it faster than your adversary, you do eventually win. And it's a really obvious lesson in many ways, but it's so profoundly illustrated by everything that we see back there. And in particular, I'd highlight the RUSI reports in this, which I think have been excellent. When you read through that from the beginning, that's a kind of common thread. And it is absolutely nailed into our policy in terms of the Defence Command Paper refresh, which talks about speed of adaptation. So that is the lesson we've drawn out.
Thanks, John. So, question here and one more over here.
Paul Sangurka, we are a cybersecurity company specializing in securing the Internet of Things, including drones. An observation and a question. So the observation is the UK has been as innovative, as risk-taking as the Ukraine, but it was in the Second World War. We just forgot the lessons once the war had finished. So perhaps there's a lesson there for us in the future to not waste the tragedy that's happened in the Ukraine. And my question is for the Ukrainians, and particularly for Natalia. Thank you for introducing Brave One. Fascinating. Sometimes as a startup, we struggle to get the requirements out of our own Ministry of Defence. What is the best way to understand the threats that the Ukrainian armed forces are facing so that we as an SME with world-leading tech can help you in the field?
Do you want to take that one, Natalia?
Could you repeat your question?
What's the best way for a UK startup with technology which we think could be helpful to the Ukrainian armed forces to understand more about your requirements, your threats, so that we don't waste your time and we can offer something that's really useful?
On their how to say, on the advertisement possibility from my side, we have our website brave1.gov.ua. You have there like the possibility to apply your solution on the platform. It will just right on the spot appear on our, I would say, contact person window and email. So we will teach it and we will come back to you with the possibilities for cooperation. So it's we are a very easy to go platform with very digitalized as well for our Ukrainian companies, and it's one of the our strong and easy points for them because they don't have just prepare huge list of the documents. They have just to apply on this platform. And as well, it's possible to apply for international partners as well on the English version of the site.
Thank you. I think there was one more question over here, and then we'll wrap up.
Sorry, this one, yeah.
Sorry,
Thanks. Dan Anders Brown, Head of Future Technology for Kinetic. My question is aimed at John. Sorry, John, all questions seem to be coming at you now. But having just spent 30 years in MOD, I think, one of the key frustrations for us was in the procurement process was about the number of bureaucratic elements placed in front of anyone. I think, we would have loved to work immediately with industry, and now being in industry, I'd love to go and work with the MOD. But the processes are, it seems, purposely blocking. What can defence innovation do, to remove those blockers? Accepting that a lot of them are owned by Treasury or DRES, et cetera, because it does seem like, whilst we would love to provide MVPs, we're stymied at every point.
So within the innovation community, we have our spearheads, which are effectively a series of pilots where we take particular capability problems. One of them's anti-submarine warfare, and we use them to demonstrate how fast we could move. And most of it, you don't actually need to change the policies. What you actually need to do is genuinely empower people to work to the edge of those policies rather than constraining themselves through a kind of learnt behavior. So we have demonstrated through those that you can move more quickly. And what we're now trying to do is to take all the lessons we've learned out of working in those ways and expand them out more broadly across defence. At the same time, we've got this opportunity to learn from our Ukrainian allies of how they're doing it even faster than we thought was possible. The headmark is there. So the Defence Command Paper is absolutely clear about what we need to achieve. It sets some really quite ambitious timelines for procurement, 5 years for most platforms, 3 years for digital. So those are imposed upon us quite reasonably by the system, and we now need to work out how to get through to that. I'm genuinely optimistic about this. I'm also a realist in that if we can't do it now, we're never going to manage it. Given what's going on in the world, if we can't change our systems to get more agile, then something pretty serious has gone wrong.
Thanks, John. One final question here, and then we'll.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anmol. I'm the CEO of Green Jets, and we make drone propulsion technology that makes drones significantly quieter and stealthier than what you find in the market today. So my question is to Alex, just for variety. So we heard some fascinating thoughts around how many drones are lost at the battlefield every month, and also new technologies such as counter UAV technologies coming to play. My question to you is the future of drone warfare going from 10,000 drones a month to say 50,000 drones actually increasing production at half the cost? Or actually, are we looking at a future where we want to produce lesser drones that are actually more resilient from an acoustic or radar perspective? Which direction do you think the drone industry should be headed from your point of view and the Ukrainian drone ecosystem?
There are different classes of drones. Actually, we should understand it. There are micro, nano, like small class. We produce small class like up to 20. Different classes of drones. There are different ways to develop it. So as I mentioned before, that's like FPV drones. It's like actually munition. So that's there's going to be nobody will fight with. Nobody can fight. Actually, nobody can fight with this. It's just munition. In our class, for example, when we fly and collect data from really deep inside of the territory. So we have really heavy sensors, really expensive sensors. Our system really expensive. So in this case, we should be invisible. We should collect information and get it to any software platform, etc. So I think now what I see from different companies like Safran, like Bayraktar, etc. They try to collect a lot of different technologies in one quite big aircraft. So I think they've mistaken. So that's I would divide functions for completely different vehicles. So if it's a system for reconnaissance, that's going to be invisible, silent, etc. So yeah, we managed to fight with electronic warfare at the moment with CRPA antenna, etc. So it's not the big challenge at the moment. But finally, it's going to be always contest between both of sides. So and we should look some steps in front, some like maybe 5-10 years, how actually technologies are going on, how it's going to be in the future. So I would divide for expensive, I would divide small, smart shells like FPV drones, etc. And drones that inevitably going to be expensive. So in this case, there's completely different way for development. So it depends.
Thank you, Alex. So I think on that note, we'll wrap things up there. So a very big thank you to all of our panel and to Natalia here online as well. Let's give a panel round of applause. Thank you.